Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association removed the roof of my house illegally and ended up having to pay me $500,000. And by the way, if you haven't already, please feel free to check out my podcast on all major podcast platforms. Just search for Ripe Stories and you will find exclusive episodes. And the title story starts like this. I will get this out of the way now to avoid people asking these questions right in the middle of the story. So I'm a bit of an eccentric person, and while the people I surround myself with love it, others not so much. Yes, I have a roof that is teal colored, and yes, that was 100% a decision I made and I stand by it. I know that it doesn't quite match the rest of my house, but at the same time, I don't care. It makes me happy and that's all I care about. With that out of the way, I will now start the actual plot of this story. So I live in a weird location, I know, perfect for my personality, that is on the border of an HOA neighborhood. When the HOAs formed, nobody really knew where to draw the lines and some mistakes happened. By that, I mean I am one of about 5 people living in homes that are right in between 2 HOAs but not really within either one. So I cannot be forced into anything, but the one that I live literally one house out of wants me to join badly. I do have the option to join the HOA despite being not technically in the range as a kind of way to avoid more issues about it. However, the point is I don't want to be part of an HOA because that just means rules I have to follow that usually hover around being like others. I want to stay an individual and constantly decline joining them. In the heart of the HOA lies one woman who I will name Karen, and she fits that name perfectly just by looking at her. When she opens her mouth, it becomes even more obvious that she is one damn Karen. It's also clear to me exactly why she wants me to join the HOA, and that reason is the aforementioned roof coloring. I was busy packing for vacation when she came up to my door once again and started her entire thing about how great the HOA was before I cut her off. Me, look, I've heard this same speech half a dozen times. Do you really think hearing it again will make me change my mind? Karen, I was hoping that hearing it again would make you realize that you are wrong, and the HOA would be a perfect fit for you. Me, really? Karen, yes, you can see how normal homeowners do things. You won't have to stick out like a sore thumb of the neighborhood anymore. Me, has it ever occurred to you that I am aware of my house being different? And maybe I just want it that way? Karen, how can you look at that disgusting roof and think it's normal? People are gonna be driving around and then bam, they see your disaster of a house. They will think the circus moved into the town and then prices will plummet. You wanna hurt everybody around you just to spite me, right? Yeah, she really felt I was doing all of this just to personally spite her, despite never meeting her before all of this HOA business started. I was done talking to somebody with a pole so far up their rear that they could probably taste it. Like I said, I was busy packing, so I made sure to end the conversation, making it clear I wanted nothing to do with her or the HOA. And if she didn't understand that, maybe she could go get her hearing or brain checked out. So then I went on my vacation to visit some old friends from college and had no idea what was going on with my house while I was gone. I will tell you that while I was busy drinking and catching up with friends, Karen decided she was gonna do something highly illegal and thought she would get away with it. She got some fake documents claiming that my home was part of the HOA and she had the right to remove my roof for being in violation. So what she did is she got a crew to come and literally remove my roof, leaving an open top to the house. Because of course that looks just so much better, right? To make things even worse, a thunderstorm happened to pass by and take 2 full days to finish. Again, my roof did not even have the laziest attempt at a cover, so rain just came into my house. A day after that was when I came back and saw the huge amount of damage that was done to my home. The inside was totally flooded and everything I had was destroyed. I had experts come in and basically say that my house was ruined and putting in a new roof at this point would not be enough. I had a carpet floor and the water was now under that and ruining the floors. The electric wiring would have to be totally redone. They told me that at this point it would be cheaper to buy a new house and hope that my insurance would help cover some of the losses. The insurance won't because they don't cover missing roofs as an acceptable reason. I knew that Karen had done this and it was not even that hard for me to prove. She had filed the paperwork like she would have a legitimate HOA issue. The fact is, she hired a company to remove my roof while I was gone and had a literal paper trail that led right to her. I got a lawyer and personally sued her for $516,000. If you think that number is random, by the way, it isn't. That was the most recent appraisal on my house, so it was legally what the house was worth. Since it was basically totally destroyed, I was suing her for the entire value of my house. In court, she just tried to argue that my roof violated HOA policy and I refused to remove it on my own, so she had the right to step in and do so. My lawyer was not taking any of her crap and made sure she had no excuse to hide behind. Trying to prove if I was part of the HOA or not would have been a long and annoying process, so we didn't start down that route. Instead, we went into her own HOA rules and talked about what she had not done. Due to HOA rules and regulations, actions like she took could only be taken after several warnings had been formally issued to me from the HOA. None of which existed in documentation or files, and second, if the HOA was to remove my roof for being a violation, they were also obligated to install a new roof that fit HOA standards and then take me to court for the payment. They were not ever allowed to just leave an open roof for a home to be broken into or destroyed. The HOA did not want to lose the money and other members started claiming that I did not belong to the HOA at all. I agreed with them, and so the lawsuit shifted from them having to pay me to Karen needing to pay me directly. She went personally bankrupt because of this and actually needed to sell her house in order to pay me back for all the damage she had caused. This meant she had to move and was no longer in the HOA at all anymore. For anybody wondering, yes, I did rebuild my house with another teal roof. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Either way, the next one is titled Karen Hates Me Smoking. I was smoking a cigarette in the car. I cannot smoke on my landlord's property, so I pulled into street parking 100 feet away from the house. I was not directly in front of any homes, but across the street from them. My partner, who happens to be a black man, walked from our home to the car, and a white man who was jogging stopped and just stared at us. My partner noticed and was wondering why he was checking us out so hard. He left and we continued about our business. I pack my bowl for a quick hit before I go back into my house. Unfortunately, bad timing. The jogger came back and asked what we were doing. He said he lives 2 houses down. I tell him I live here and cannot smoke in my home or driveway. He says I should move to the dog park down the street, but I know that park is closed that time of day and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I've been doing this for 8 months without an issue until now. He leaves and I continue to mind my own business until I see he is back outside staring at us, and this time he is taking photos of our car. I put away my weed and light another cigarette. Moments later, 2 police cars pull up behind me and come to both windows saying someone called in about people in a suspicious car involving drugs. I explain the same story. I live here and I cannot smoke in my home, so I'm parked in a public spot. They asked for proof of my residency and I consented. They said there's no reason that I couldn't be there and then just left. I don't know why this guy was tripping so hard. Added just to clear if the guy was tripping before, I even pulled out weed. I did not drive home after smoking the weed, my partner drove home. Either way, I can see my door from where I parked and it would only take me 45 seconds to walk there for those concerned about DUI. And by the way, in my state, recreational sales are not legalized yet, medical sales are legal, and it's decriminalized to possess up to a certain amount. And the next one is another revenge story. Many years ago, I worked for an organization providing frontline customer service. It was a decent place to work, but our manager had a lot of rules. One of the rules was that we could not do any personal printing with the printers at work. If we did, we were expected to pay 50 cents per page for black and white printing and $1 per page for color. I'm not sure who made this rule, but the manager was constantly reminding us. Our desks were not assigned. Meaning, any day you could be sitting at any desk depending on your assigned tasks for the day. One day I was interviewing for another job within the organization, but at another location. Prior to the interview, the manager of the other location asked me if I would mind printing a copy of my resume and bringing it with me as their printers were down for the day. I said no problem and figured I would print it at work since it was work related. I was sitting at a desk that did not have a printer at it. The closest printer was located between my manager's desk and an employee desk. So then I printed it and stood up to go get it. Before I go to the printer, my manager got there first. My print job went down ahead of hers. When she saw what I had printed, she said, "Oh P, this looks like a personal print job." I explained it wasn't, but she disagreed and said since it had nothing to do with our day-to-day work, I had to pay. $2 for 4 black and white pages. I begrudgingly paid up. I asked her what happened to the money, and she said she always put it in the Christmas party fund. Alright then, a few weeks later I was sitting at the desk with the printer at it. It was lunchtime and everyone except my manager agreed to go to a nearby restaurant for lunch. I had walked out our building and realized I forgot my wallet. So I quickly ran back in to get it. When I got to my desk I could hear the printer going. I was curious what was being printed as it was spitting out page after page. I quickly glanced at the pile and saw at least 100 pages printed in color announcing a Sweet 16 for Trista, which is our manager's daughter. It very obviously belonged to my manager. My manager came out of the bathroom a moment later and seemed shocked to see me standing there. I picked up the pile and passed it to her and told her our Christmas party fund was gonna be getting a big boost. She said nothing but looked really uncomfortable. A few weeks later, our district manager made his quarterly visit. He talked about the upcoming Christmas party and how excited he was for it. I decided it was time for some petty revenge. I raised my hand and said, "Just wondering, how much have we accumulated this year for the Christmas party from print jobs?" He looked so confused and asked me to explain what I meant. So I told him our manager's rule. He got really quiet and said he would have to review this. The next day my manager sent an email saying the printing rule was something she was misinformed on and would be abolished immediately. Me, being the little disturber I am, hit reply all and asked what would happen to the already accumulated funds. Someone else said we should have a nice healthy fund for a pizza lunch and everyone agreed. The next day I hear my manager ordering 10 pizzas for lunch. Also, she used her own personal credit card to pay for it all. Do I think she was pocketing the printing money all along? Absolutely. But it was fun making her sweat and then having to spend nearly $300 the next day to make up for it. And by the way, $30 for a large pizza is very standard where I'm from. I ordered a pizza for supper last night and with tax, tip and delivery, I paid $36. Our manager ordered us pizza from Boston Pizza, a Canadian chain. Google them and you will see their prices. And the next one is titled, "Should Not Have Fired Me." So I worked at a big box store. I worked there for almost 2 years, and while working there, upper management liked to try and bully me, but a lot of people didn't like it because I worked hard and I would stand up for myself. On many occasions, they would set me up to break policy and get mad when I didn't and told them I wouldn't do it because I would get fired. So then the pandemic hits. I get pregnant and a manager has me take leave and gets it approved because I was already really sick, and with all the cases she didn't want me to get the virus as well. I was not the only person to have someone help me do this, but with me it was a big problem. Even though I was on leave, I was being called daily by managers wondering when I would get back and should just tough it out. Being in an already stressful situation, I miscarried, and when they found out, they pretty much demanded I come back because "You're not pregnant anymore, so you should be okay." I go back since then, ended my leave, so I had to, but I still had not recovered and had to take some days off. During the pandemic, absences were not supposed to count against you. However, I was fired due to them. They refused my doctor's notes, which I also learned they weren't supposed to, and well, I don't go back there, but I go back to get some stuff and people are asking why I was fired. I tell them and they get mad. People have had 5 times as many absences than I did and are still there, and every doctor's note is accepted. Well, at this time they are struggling because people are quitting due to them being horrible, so they ask me to come back. Which is exactly what I do. They don't realize I'm pregnant, I wait to tell them until I start showing, and I get a doctor's note stating I cannot be standing too long during work and can only do so much. They cannot deny it. I work up until the point I give birth, get my 12 weeks paid and immediately quit. They thought when they hired me they would get the hard worker they used to have, but no, I timed it all so I could waste their time, get paid maternity leave and then quit literally the day before I came back. Moral of the story, don't fire people for BS and then beg them to come back when you realized you need them. Edit to the comments saying I should file a lawsuit. The truth is, I thought about it. I have a lawyer in my family who I talk to, and we weighed my options considering I lost my job and due to the virus finding another one was hard. I could have ended up paying more than it was worth, and even now I have a child and my money is going towards giving them a good life, and with my plan I still got paid. Plus, most of the managers were later fired anyway. I felt a lot more vindicated with being petty. At this point, I just feel a lawsuit would be more trouble than it's worth. Also, considering the state of the world after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I don't think it would bode well for me to even try. Even though this happened before, it wouldn't get me any sympathy points having a miscarriage, seeing everything that's been going on now. And the next one is titled, "Karen Code Enforcer." My daughter's friend and her mother, single mom, live across the street from a male Karen who is also a town code enforcer. Somehow, Karen offered to cut her grass, only has a front lawn and it takes less than 15 minutes to do, for money. He was charging her $50 every time, which is typically weekly. So that comes to about $200 to $250 a month from April to September. And then he complained about doing it, he approached her to do it and would stalk her for the money if he did it while she was not home, like wanting his money while she is carrying groceries into the house. I told her she's getting robbed and don't deal with that a-hole because nothing good can come from it. More on his non-related to his behavior later. One day she saw a lawn service crew working a few doors down and decided to ask how much for her lawn. $75 a month, and as they have a contract with the other house and they would be in the neighborhood anyway. And the lawn is really small, so she agrees and tells Karen she does not need him to cut the grass anymore. And now for the male Karenness. The day after she told him, he was on her lawn with a ruler. He said the grass was too long and cited her for it. He apparently measured the only small patch of grass that's actually growing, because 99% of her grass is not long enough yet to cut. I was just there the other day and it is not long enough to cut yet. Meanwhile, the citation was 2 weeks ago. Talk about extortion. She filed a complaint with the city and has not heard back yet. This guy though is a real piece of work. He drives up and down the side street, almost crashing his car frequently because he is looking at everyone's houses for violations. One of my favorites was my neighbor across the street who was having work done outside her house. Nothing major, just replacing a bay window and some stonework added under it. Karen is staring and almost hit the worker's truck. He gets out and demands to see a permit. It is posted in the glass on the storm door, literally less than 5 feet from the work they are doing. He somehow gets into it with the workers and the homeowner comes out. All I could hear is the homeowner very loudly and sternly say, "How much more prominent do you want the permit the city issued me to be? It's exactly where it says to put it. If it's not big enough for you to see, you need to tell them to make bigger permits so you can see them." 2 days later, the homeowner got a notice that her taxes are going up because she increased the value of her house. The best part is, they were not even done doing the work yet. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. The land where I live is a little bit complicated and my dumb neighbor made it even more so by selling some of his land without thinking something through. The way it is laid out is that on one side of the land is a main road and that is the only official road for any of us to access from where we are. The other side of our land is woods and then eventually a lake, so the point I want to make clear is that the main road is the only way to get anywhere by car. I have built my own little road and gated it in so that I could have a path for my truck to get from the road to my house. My neighbor had a much more basic gravel road for the same thing. That is enough for the annoying needed backstory, and we can start with what my neighbor did that made him look so stupid. He wanted to downsize and ended up selling a decent chunk of his land off to someone else. He did not keep any land though that connects to the main road, and his current path now belongs to them. He basically got himself stuck where he has no way to the main road and he is landlocked. I honestly have no idea how he managed to look at the maps and paperwork and not see this potential problem at least once. I can at least say we never actually had issues with this neighbor before. We are a very close in proximity but keep to ourselves kind of people. I assume that he thought he could use that same gravel road, but the new owners have livestock and actually got rid of it and fenced in their area. Now he was basically stuck and the only way in or out was my own road. I'm gonna be blunt in saying that I did not want this guy driving through my property, and since the gate was remote activated, he could not just manually open it up. You would think that any smart person would try to at least speak to me first, because while I did not want him using it, I might have while he figured something else out. I really don't know what he was thinking. Instead, he just showed up one night and kept buzzing to be let into the gate. I did not want to start some kind of pattern, so I ignored it and did not let him through. I don't even know how he got out, but if I go through all my thoughts, I'll be typing forever. He then got out of the car and walked to my house yelling that I needed to let him through. I told him to get the hell off my property before I called the cops on him for trespassing. Turns out he called the cops before I could, and I had to explain the entire thing to them. They honestly had no idea what to do about the entire situation and had to call their supervisor. We went back and forth for a while before he asked, more like demanded, that I let him through this time until we can sort things out properly. He called the next day telling me that the police did not want to get involved in these kinds of disputes and would hope the two of us could come to some sort of agreement. I'll save you all the suspense because we did not come close to any agreement. He wanted full access, a remote key, and made it clear that he had no plans to figure anything else out. I put my foot down and told him that he was not allowed on my property anymore. I thought it would be the end, but he tried to actually get a lawyer on this thing. Despite him trespassing on my property and calling the police, he was now trying to get me in trouble for not allowing him to use it. They were trying to argue that I was not allowed to block any sanctioned road. I had to go and hire a lawyer who told me that I was very smart for not giving him access because now he cannot claim that I took it away. The biggest flaw in his whole case was simply that it was not a real road that I was denying him access to. I know I had been calling it a road due to its length, but really it is just a very long driveway. It goes from the main road and then to my house, which I at least see as a driveway. And even if it isn't, it is still a private road, it does not have a name and it would not be on any maps since it is not sanctioned. In fact, to get to his house he would need to get through my gate, drive to my house and then from there drive on the grass all the way to his house. During this whole process he was not allowed to get really in and out of his property easily, so he was staying with family in the nearby town. He kept threatening that I was going to have to pay for every day I refused him access to his land, but he really had no case. The combination of it being my gated driveway and the fact he would destroy my grass going through it meant that it was in fact mine. If he tried to go on it, I had full rights to call the police and have him arrested for trespassing. That got me angry since that is what should have happened at the start before I had to pay all of these lawyer fees. I know that I might sound harsh, but please keep in mind, he really did this to himself. He left himself with property and no way to get in and out of it. He was in control of what he sold and most likely could have given himself a small strip big enough to make a path for him to get through. Instead though, he just assumed without asking that me and even the guy he sold the land to would be fine with him coming and going through our property. He made a really dumb decision and instead of trying to rectify it, he doubled down by making more bad choices. Now, you might want to know what he did since he had this land he could not access. The other guy was brought in and the three of us mediated possible solutions. I would sell him that strip of land between the properties so he could make his own little path. The other guy even offered the possibility of moving the property lines around so that he would still get the land he paid for, it would just be shifted to work a little better. My dumb neighbor wanted none of these solutions and instead was fixated on that one of us needed to buy his property. The other guy just couldn't do it after just buying, so that left me. I really did not need the land and wanted to say no at first. His lawyer thought so and made a decent offer on the land, and I decided I would buy it and figure out what to do with it later. My lawyer fees were going to come out of pocket because I knew trying to sue the neighbor would just be more stress than it was worth. I allowed moving vans to use my driveway that one time just so I could get him out of there without issues or police. Maybe in the future he will make smarter decisions, but I sadly doubt it. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.